One of the things I love about yoga is it combines mind, body, and breath. And we're not just doing physical exercises, we're not just doing meditation, but there's also a spiritual element, there's a philosophy to it. And a lot of the yoga philosophy comes from the source texts. One of them is the Upanishads, which means to sit near, as in to sit near a teacher. And I always like to go back to the source text in my teacher trainings, my own practice, and in what I share. And the Upanishads were written around 600 BCE, roughly. And there's some that are written as recently as 1900, but the ones that are considered essential are more around 600 BCE to 200 CE. And in there, there's a core teaching that's Tat Tvam Asi, which means thou art that. So there's this concept in the Upanishads of trying to understand, like, what knowledge can I know that if I understand this, everything else makes sense. If I could just understand one thing, and it's essentially Tat Tvam Asi, knowing that what I truly am underneath my identity as a person, a name, a role, a job, a title, relationships to others, underneath all of that, that's all going to change. My breath is always changing, my mind's always changing. But when I look in the mirror, there's something observing it that doesn't seem to change, right? It's like, oh, wow, I got a new wrinkle under my eye today. Got this new little red dot on my skin, right? What is that part of us that's observing these changes? That's the true self. That's the Atman within. It's considered like a drop of the ocean, and Brahman is the ocean. And we are all drops of this ocean, unique expressions of the divine, but ultimately connected under the surface, under these layers of identity, these roles that we play. There's this deep interconnection underneath all of it. And yoga sort of strips away our layers of protection, of identification, of saying, I am this person, I have this role, that's what I do, that's who I am, that's what I believe. We kind of soften all those edges to feel into underneath all that. I'm not actually that, all those roles, I play them, I can be those things. But what I really am is the part that observes that, the part that I can see those things. So that's what I'm going to share in today's practice. This is right from the Quietmind Yoga membership, which you can check out at quietmind.yoga/membership. And this is a full-length Hatha yoga class, all levels. If you're relatively new, this isn't the best place to start. Check out the Yoga for Beginners course over at quietmind.yoga. But if you're at least maybe 6 months to a year or more of experience, you should be just fine in this class. And we'll do a little bit of everything. I like to include strengthening, flexibility, stretching, what I call release, strengthen, stretch, this approach to releasing tension in the body, then activating the muscles, then releasing them. And this works really well. And I learned this through my own mindfulness awareness of my own body, of working with tensions over the years, back pain, shoulder pain, tight hamstrings, and figuring out that just stretching was not actually optimal for the muscles. That's not how our bodies function at their best. So we will focus on using our bodies to their best today in this practice, and coming back to your own awareness of your true self. It doesn't have to fit into any description that I might give you, but I want to create this space for you to have your own experience of kind of stripping away these identifications with the self, this name, this roles that we play, this ego, this identity. It's all good to have those things. We want to have those things be strong and solid and intentional and purposeful. But we also need times to step back and go sort of behind the curtain to our true selves. That's, I'm just playing this role. I'm just playing the role of teacher right now. You're playing the role of student. It's a fun game we get to play. And as Alan Watts, one of my first teachers, would say, imagine if you were God, if you were source energy, and you could do anything, you could have anything, you could be anything. Eventually you get kind of bored with that. And you eventually maybe want to make up this game where you kind of forget who you are. And you have to remember again. So you go into all these different wild adventures, different roles, different identities, different games you play, and then eventually you come back to remembering who you truly are. So that's sort of Alan Watts' quick summary of Hinduism and the Upanishad philosophy, which is essentially yoga philosophy. So there's a lot of overlap with that. But to put it all into practice, we'll do today's class. It's all levels, Hatha flow practice. Hope you enjoy. And if you have any requests or questions, please leave a comment below. And subscribe to this channel. Like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. And you can go to quietmind.yoga to see all my other offerings, the teacher training, the Yoga for Beginners course, and sign up for the email newsletter where I send out little updates occasionally. and some special offers occasionally. Thank you for watching and enjoy your practice. All right, so we'll get started in a comfortable seated posture, Sukhasana. And take a few slow, deep belly breaths here. And we'll start with some simple movements right away from seated. So hands on your knees or wherever is comfortable as you round your back like cat pose, and then extend your spine like cow pose. So you can link this with the breath as you exhale, round your back, and as you inhale, extend your spine. Just moving a few times with your breath here. And then we'll come back to the center and we'll start to move the spine in a little twist. So twist to your left. Find a little length in your spine. You can move your neck around a little bit here if you want. All right, just some simple spinal movements here to start. And we'll come back to the center, over to the other side. A simple twist. You can move your neck around here if you want. And then we'll come back to the center into a simple side bend. Walking your left arm out to the left, right arm overhead. And then we'll come back to the center, over to the other side, same thing. And then back to the center, up to hands and knees now. Start to move the spine any way that feels good from there. Just listening to your body, feeling things out. And back to a neutral spine to tuck your toes and sit back onto your heels. So stretching your feet. So we're going to address the whole body today. And if you want to go a little further, you can sort of sit up and even interlace your hands, reach your arms overhead if you want a little more there. Couple breaths, stretching the feet, toes. And then we'll let that go back down to the hands and knees. And point your fingers back towards your knees, palms face down. And start to lean back, stretching into your forearms and wrists. And you can lean a little to one side or the other. And just feeling this out. And we'll let that go. Back to hands and knees. And with the tops of your feet down, start to sit back onto your heels. And lean back to lift your knees, stretching into the feet and ankles. And if you're okay there, you lift one knee a little higher, stretching more into that side. And now the other knee a little higher, more into that side. let this go back down to hands and knees with your right hand pointing back, palm facing up. And you could curl your fingers here, getting into the hand, fingers, wrist. Then we'll let that go and just kind of shake out the right hand and go to the other side. Left fingers point back, palm faces up. Getting into the hand, wrist, and forearm. And then sort of shake out the left hand and move back to downward facing dog. And you can ease into down dog here. Make any little movements that you like, maybe bending one knee at a time. And in our practice today, we'll use this teaching of the Upanishads of Tat Tvam Asi, which is the main core teaching of all of the Upanishads. Thou art that. So underneath all of our layers of changes, ups and downs, there's this true self within us and within all beings that we can connect to. So letting that guide your practice today. So let your right knee bend and press your left heel down towards the floor, and we'll hold there for a moment. And then we'll switch to the other side, same thing. Getting a little more into the calves and hamstrings. And we'll let this go and walk up to the front of the mat to a forward fold. Uttanasana. Knees can bend. You can let your head hang down. You can hold elbows, massage your neck. Any version of this you want to do today. Always checking in with your inner authority, your true self of what feels right for you today. And then lower your hands to step back to plank pose, high push-up position. Hold and breathe here. Start to activate your core. You can even add more if you want by energetically sliding your hands back. So they don't actually move, but you push down and pull back with the heels of your hands. That can get your core to work a little more here, building some internal heat. And then lower all the way down to your stomach. Bring your hands off your mat and tented fingers. And let's do that motion where we inhale to lift your heart like cobra. And then exhale to turn to one side. And move with your breath a couple times, moving left to right. Starting to release some tension in the shoulders. And we'll come back to the center in the cobra shape and let your hands float off the ground. Lift your legs into locust. So you can do any version of the arms here, but starting to activate the back of the body. And then slowly release back to down dog. Right, and this is the general sequence I find works best. Every day I do this in my own way too. Releasing tension, then strengthening, activating things, and then stretching things. The muscles respond really well to that series. Release, strengthen, and stretch. So now we've released some tension. We're going to start to get more active here. So let's step or hop to the front of the mat to a forward fold. And on your inhale, lift halfway up, strengthening your back. Hold that position for a moment. Feel your shoulders retract, your spine strengthen. And then release all that forward fold, round your back. With a bend in your knees, engage your core as you rise all the way up, arms reach overhead. And exhale, hands to heart. Pause in mountain pose. Feel your breath, feel your connection to the ground here. And let your breath lead your movements. Now as you inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale, forward fold all the way down. Inhale, half lift, strengthen your back. Exhale to chaturanga or belly on the exhale, one smooth motion. With your inhale, cobra or up dog. Exhale, down dog. From down dog, on your inhale, reach your right leg back. Exhale, step forward into a low lunge, left knee down. Inhale, sweep your arms up like a Y. We'll hold this for a moment. And you can keep your arms up or bend your elbows. And here, if your back toes are tucked, untuck them so the top of your back foot is pressing down, and push down through the top of your left foot. At the same time, slightly tuck your pelvis in, so like you're rounding your lower back rather than arching. And with all that engaged, move your hips slightly forward and down into the lunge. So you get a little more strengthening and lengthening of your left hip flexors. And we'll let all that go, release down through vinyasa or right to down dog. Now the left leg reaches back, inhale. Exhale forward into a low lunge. Right knee down, arms sweep up, either a Y or a W. And now again, your back toes, make sure they're untucked so the top of your back foot's pushing down. And press into the back foot. You'll feel your quads activate. Tuck your pelvis in rather than arching your back. So don't stick your butt out, tuck your pelvis in, and then move slightly forward and down into the lunge. So you get this contracted lengthening of the quads and hip flexors. And then we'll let all that go back down through either vinyasa or right to down dog. You can always do more or less or different variations. Very nice. From down dog, step or hop to the front of your mat, forward fold. And with your inhale, lift halfway up, strong back. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, reach all the way up, arms overhead. Exhale, hands to heart, pause in mountain pose. Notice your breath here, notice your connection to the ground. And the observer can experience all these changes of strengthening, lengthening, stillness, movement. The true self witnesses and observes all these ups and downs. Now with your inhale, reach your arms overhead and hook your thumbs to come into a side bend to your right. And you can do any variation of the arms here. You might reach your right arm down your side or keep the arms overhead. You could add a little rotation to this if you want. And then we'll come up on the inhale back to center to exhale to the other side. Same thing, simple side bend. You can add little variations. You could cross your legs, whatever you want to do here. Next inhale, come back up to center. And your exhale, bend your elbows, lift your heart, back bend. So you're standing in the simple back bend, shoulder blades down and together. Interlace your hands behind your back and fold forward with the hands interlaced. The arms come overhead into this version of Uttanasana. Very nice. Your feet can be together or hips width, whatever feels natural for you. But bend your left knee, keep the right leg straight, and turn your left shoulder towards your left knee. So you're getting into the outer right hip. IT band, TFL, this outer hip area that tends to get pretty tight for a lot of us. And we'll go to the other side, same thing. Now your right knee bends, your left leg straightens, your right shoulder dips towards the right knee. Looks great, everybody. Keep the arms the same, but straighten out both legs now, arms still coming overhead, and hold there for a moment, focusing on the shoulders, which are in shoulder extension. And then we'll let that go. Release your hands down back to plank pose, shoulders over wrist. And set up for side plank. Right hand a little forward from center. Stack your feet or right knee down. You could add on lifting your left leg or even grab your left foot if you're feeling more open here. From shoulder mobility to shoulder stability now. We'll turn this into a back bend. Let your left foot lower to the floor behind you. Plant your foot, lift your hips. Strong spine and back. Almost like a version of wheel pose. Really long and extended. And we'll let this go back down to plank, to side plank, the left hand a little forward from center. Any variation on this side might be different. Usually one side's a little stronger. Couple breaths here. Looks great, everybody. If you feel challenged with your balance, you can always focus your gaze on a single spot. But if you feel really good, you could close your eyes, challenge yourself more. And now to the back bend. Plant your foot to the floor behind you. Big extension of the spine, like a big arc. Very nice. And release all that back down to the stomach for Locust Pose, any version of this. If you're feeling more open, you could go to bow pose, bending the knees, grabbing the feet. But it's still kind of early in the practice, so do what feels good for you. Notice the activation of your glutes, hamstrings, your spinal muscles, the shoulders, the whole back of the body, strong and active here. And let it go back to downward facing dog. Really nice, everybody. From here, lift your right leg back, opening your hip with a bend in your knee. Move your heel towards your tail as if you're trying to contract your hamstrings. And now bring that knee towards your left elbow. So a twisting version of plank. Into side plank. Extend your right leg out to your left. Maybe float the leg off the floor. In side plank variation here, or fallen triangle, sometimes called. And then we'll come back to down dog. Really nice. All right, so we're just getting some activation of the outer hip after we did that opening stuff. So release, strengthen, stretch. Now we'll lift the left leg back, open the hip. The bend in your knee here. Hold and breathe. And then bring your left knee towards your right elbow. Twisting plank. And now extend your left leg out to your right. The side plank variation. You might float your left foot off the floor or just for a second try to lift it up. This gets a really good activation of your outer hips. And then we'll come back to down dog. Reset, recenter. From here, we'll lift the right leg back. Inhale. Exhale, step forward into a lunge. Like locust, reach your arms back, lift your heart. Warrior 3. Rise up into your balance here. Feel again the strength of your back body in Warrior 3. Back of your glutes, hamstrings, spine. Everything active just like locust. Standing splits. Lower your hands to the floor or blocks, or maybe grab your ankle, challenging your balance. Again, eyes resting on a single spot helps with the balance. Eyes closed can challenge your balance more. Really nice, everybody. Lower your left foot back into the lunge. Rise up into the crescent lunge one more time. And here, bring your right hand to your right hip, your left arm into a side bend here. So you're just focusing on the left side getting longer in this side bend. And then we'll turn it into a twist. Left elbow outside the knee. So we're in this high lunge twist. And you could bring your hands into prayer. You could lower your back knee if that helps with the stability for you. You can also open your arms out outside the knee. Find length in your spine like locust, and that gives you room to rotate. And then we'll untwist, lower your hands. You can go through a vinyasa or back to down dog. From down dog, left leg back, inhale. Exhale forward to a lunge, setting up for warrior 3. Few breaths here. Eventually parallel to the floor. Lower your hands, standing splits. Back leg lifts any amount higher. And you can even sort of grab your leg and pull your chest towards your leg to help you into this a little more. There's a little leverage if you want. Back down to the lunge. Very nice, everybody. Again, the arms sweep up, the crescent lunge. Creating a length through your sides, a little back bend. And bring your left hand to your left hip. Your right arm just into a side bend, little arc here. Creating more space in your ribs. And then keep that space into your twist. Elbow outside the knee. Hands in prayer. This high lunge twist. Very nice. And with all twists, you want to start with extension of the spine, getting as long as you can. That gives you more room in the ribs to rotate. And if you're okay there, you might open your arms out like a T in the twist. And slowly untwist, lower your hands back to the floor, vinyasa or to down dog. Great. Very nice, everybody. From here, let's step or hop to the front of the mat, forward fold. And with your inhale, lift halfway up, strong back. And exhale, forward fold. Inhale to reach all the way up, arms overhead. And exhale, the hands to the heart in mountain pose. Pause in mountain. Notice your breath here. Notice your connection to the ground. And that part of you that's noticing the awareness. Tat Tvam Asi, thou art that. The true self. Not our identities, our changing bodies and minds, but the awareness underneath all that. Now from here, we'll inhale to reach the arms up like a Y. Chair pose as you exhale, hips back and down. Hold there for a moment. You can also bring your hands in prayer. Your feet can be together or hips distance. Now from chair, let's all bring the feet together and the hands in prayer to twist to your right, elbow outside the knee. And it's okay if your left knee comes a little forward when you twist. Some teachers will say you have to keep your knees in line, but that's just not necessary. It's not safer anatomically. Some people, it actually is safer to let your left knee come a little forward. So if that feels good for you, go for it. And we'll untwist back to center. And to the other side, this twisting chair. Again, your right knee could come a little forward. That works better for my body, but listen to what feels good for your body. You might want to keep your knees in line. And then we'll come back to center and lower the hands down, setting up for Bakasana Crow. Step 1, weight into your hands. Step 2, knees to triceps. And step 3, heels to tail. You can do any of those along the way. And if you can hold it for a few breaths, then you can jump back through vinyasa. But we'll have about 15 more seconds here to practice crow. Very nice. And when you're done, eventually meeting back in down dog. And we'll all come to hands and knees to child's pose. So just past the middle of our class today, recentering here, noticing your breath, noticing your connection to the ground. And again, the part of us that notices the true self. Now let's come up to the hands and knees. And we'll make some circles in the right hip. So the circumduction of the hip joint. It's always good to include all the movements of the body in our active classes. And now from here, we'll have the right leg reach straight back, balancing. Very slight bend in your knee to activate the hamstrings and glutes. Left arm reaches forward, stay there, or bend the back knee and grab the foot into this bowing sort of shape. Very nice. Looks great, everybody. And then slowly lower back to the hands and knees. One more thing here on this same side. So your same knee, right knee opens out to your right. Kind of like a fire hydrant pose. But we're going to add a lot of core activation now by just lifting the left arm forward and up. And if that's too much, just bring it back down. Hold there for a moment. Also strengthening the outer hip, the outer glutes. Very good to do. And then let that go. Back down to the hands and knees. We'll switch to the other side. Left leg makes circles, a circumduction of the joint. And again, left leg reaches straight back. Slight bend in the knee. Right arm reaches out. Stay here or grab the foot. So we're in our most active part of the practice right now. So steady breathing, steady gaze. Let that go back to the hands and knees. Last thing, same side, your left knee again lifts out to the left. And maybe your right arm reaches out in front of you. Steady breath here. And let it go back down to downward facing dog. Our last sequence of standing poses here. We'll reach the right leg back as you inhale. Exhale, step forward into a high lunge. Inhale, arms sweep up. And your exhale, bend your elbows, bend your back knee a little bit. And again, that movement where you slightly tuck your pelvis, And you'll feel the activation and stretching of your hip flexors and quads here. And now let that go into Warrior 2. Back heel turns down, arms open out. Palms up, reverse warrior, reach back. Straighten your front knee, go further back. Keep this length in your side into Trikonasana, triangle pose. And we'll hold and breathe there a few breaths. Very nice. Looks great. Yeah. And you can sort of press into your right hand to open your left ribs towards the ceiling. Your gaze can be down, more of a sort of stretch of the neck, or up, more strengthening of the neck. Side angle pose, bend your front knee and either forearm to thigh and your right forearm down, or your right hand outside the foot. And side angle, and you can do this circumduction of the shoulder here too, moving in all directions, supporting the synovial fluid of the shoulder joint in side angle pose. And now wrap your left arm around your back, palm faces away. Stay here or bind right shoulder inside your knee. And if you're feeling really open today, you could work into Bird of Paradise. Otherwise, we'll stay in the bind a few breaths. That's good, V. You can keep there. If you want to keep working on Bird of Paradise a few more breaths, go for it. But when you're ready, you'll just meet back in Down Dog. And again, you can use the vinyasa to get there if you want. From Down Dog, your left leg back as you inhale. Exhale forward into a lunge. And arms sweep up as you inhale. Now again, we'll bend the elbows like a W. Bend back knee bends down a little bit towards the ground. And tuck the pelvis in. This all helps to contract and lengthen the front of the right leg. Warrior 2. Turn your back heel down, arms open out like a T. And palms up, reverse warrior, reach back. Straighten your front knee, go further back. And keep this length as you hinge forward into triangle, Trikonasana. We'll hold there a few breaths. Again, you can press into your left hand to open your right ribs. Gaze can be down, forward, or up. And if your shoulder's a little tight here on your right arm, you could just rest it behind your back again or by your side. And then into side angle, bend the front knee, either forearm to thigh or hand outside of the foot, making these movements of the right shoulder, big circular kind of motion. Wrap your right arm around your back, palm face away. Stay there or bind. Left shoulder inside the knee to reach back and clasp the hands. You can't quite reach the hands today. Just keep working on getting the left shoulder inside of the left knee. And slowly move in that direction. Very nice, everybody. And when you're ready, you'll just release eventually back to Down Dog. You can do the vinyasa if you want. And one more twist here. Walk your hands back towards your feet, just a step or two, so your heels come closer to the ground. And grab with your left hand, grab your right leg. The lower down the leg you go, the more challenging the twist is. And you can even sort of pull with your left hand to get into different areas of your back, under the shoulder blades, wherever feels good there. Yep, you got it. A couple breaths here. And then to the other side, same thing. The right hand grabs the left leg. It's also good for the outer hips stretching, IT band, piriformis, glute medius. These outer hip muscles tend to get really tight. And then let this go. Walk out to plank pose. All the way down to your stomach for either bow pose or locust. And a few breaths here. And slowly release. Come back to child's pose or down dog. Notice the breath here. Notice the connection to the ground. Any remaining tension in the body softening. And now slowly up to the hands and knees. And we'll walk up to the front of the mat to a forward fold again, Uttanasana. Standing forward fold. And your knees can bend as you slowly rise all the way up. Engage your core to bring you up to standing. And as always in our classes on Sunday, we'll do the extra balancing stuff here. So finding mountain pose for a moment, your stability, your center in mountain. And shift your weight into your left foot to bring your right knee into your body. And you can hold the knee in, or if you're feeling more open, grab your big toe of your right foot and extend the leg straight out. So the standing hand to foot pose. So V, not that one, that's dancer pose. So the one where your leg goes out in front of you. And you grab there you go. And grab the big toe if you can. Nice. And now we'll slowly open the right leg out to the right, any amount. You can keep holding the toe if that works, or grab the knee. Find a point to focus your eyes and balance. And tree pose, bring your right foot to your thigh. And again, you could have the foot floating off the leg, strengthening your outer hip, or you could press your foot into your thigh in tree pose. Hands can be at your waist, your heart, or up like a Y. And a couple of breaths here in tree. Find a point to focus your eyes. Steady breath. And now bring your right ankle over your left thigh. So standing pigeon pose. Hips move back and down like chair. And hands can be in prayer. Last balance here. And if you want to go into the arm balance, you can lower your hands down to the floor, working towards flying pigeon. Looks good, everybody. you're ready, you'll just slowly come back to stand. And your inhale, arms reach overhead. And exhale, hands to heart, back to recenter in mountain pose. All right. So balancing now with your weight into your right foot, bring your left knee in. Maybe you grab your left big toes, extend the leg. And Jane, if you want, you can do these same stretches on your back, same kind of shapes, if you want. And we'll hold and breathe here a couple breaths. Open your left leg out to your left, any amount, either holding the foot or the knee. Tree pose, bring your foot to your thigh, either pressing into the thigh or floating just away from the thigh for more strength. Steady breath, steady gaze are really important to balance. Good. And standing pigeon, cross your ankle over your thigh, hips back and down like chair. And you could stay right there, hands in prayer, or move into the flying pigeon, hands on the floor. That's good, Marzia. Just be careful with your knee, of course. And when you're ready, just slowly come back up to stand. With your inhale, rising all the way up, arms overhead. And your exhale, hands to heart, back to mountain. Step out to your right in a wide stance, so wide-legged forward fold. And you can do any variation of this you want today. Any arm variation, leg variation. Stay still or move, but something bringing your head below your heart. If you want to do a different inversion, you can do that. We'll have about a minute here. Focusing on more flexibility now, more lengthening of the muscle fibers. And then we'll all bring the hands under the shoulders in this wide-legged forward fold. And just bend into one knee at a time, left to right. A little side-to-side motion. Stretching into the inner legs. And then we'll come back to the center and heel-toe your feet in a step or two for a horse stance. Your hands on your thighs. Turn your shoulder towards your opposite knee. A little left to right. If one side feels great, stay there, or just keep moving side to side. And then we'll come back to the center. And we'll lower the hands down, turn towards the front of the mat to a standing forward fold at the front of your mat. And from there, we'll step the left foot back for lizard pose. So you can go left foot back, or if you want a little less intensity, left knee down in lizard pose. And you can lower down to your hands or elbows or blocks. And if that's a little too much today, you could always do this on your back too, like Happy Baby. It's a similar kind of stretch. But any version of this you want to work on right now, you could add more of a coming down. You could externally rotate your leg, turning your to the edge of your right foot. We could add a little twist to this if you want. A couple of breaths here. And when you're ready, we'll slowly transition to the other side. Same thing. You can just step your left foot up, right foot back. Find the areas that want attention in your body today. Sometimes you got to move to just a little angle or just a slightly left or right, and you'll find these deeper tensions that are ready to release. And eventually we'll just come back to hands and knees. Setting up for Pigeon pose, so your right knee towards your right wrist in Pigeon, or you could add, do any variation of Pigeon. You can come down to your back, go to a wall, 90-degree version, seated double Pigeon, right? Anything to open your outer hip now. Couple of breaths here. And when you're ready, you'll just slowly transition to the other side, same thing. Any movements in between you want to do? Each breath is allowing new prana, life force, into your outer hip to create a release of tension, a sense of space and ease. So we can be less reactive to life, less tense in our bodies, less reactive in our minds. We're able to let go of tensions physically, mentally, emotionally. And when you're ready, slowly transition up to seated with your legs extending out in front of you. For Paschimottanasana, and any amount folding over the straight legs. You can bend the knees if you want. You can keep the legs straight if you want. Find where the pose is for you today. Just like with the standing forward fold, you can use your hands for a little leverage if that feels good for you. If there's any sort of pain, sensation, don't do that. But again, we're creating space here through the back of the body now. Allowing prana, life force, to flow through the whole body. And slowly back up to sitting, come down to your back. In our last couple postures here, setting up for a back bend, which could be a bridge or a wheel pose. So feet are about hips width. You can point your toes and knees slightly out in the same direction. And you can just lift the hips up into bridge and stay there. You can point your fingers towards your shoulders into wheel if you want a little more. A couple breaths wherever you're at. That's great. Good, Duncan. Yep. And then when you're ready, just slowly come back down. And everyone looked great there, safe. Into happy baby pose, holding outside of your feet or shins. You could stay still or make movements here. And down to the floor with the feet, to a simple twist. Hips to the left, knees into the right. You could stack your legs or cross your legs. Or engage your core by having your legs float off the ground a little bit. Very nice. And when you're ready, you'll come back to center to the other side, same thing. And then back to center for Shavasana, final resting pose. If there's any last movements or things you want to do first, please do that. If you want to sit in meditation for the last few minutes, you can do that. We'll have these next 3 minutes in stillness and quiet here to close our practice. ready, just slowly start to transition, moving your fingers and toes. And if you're laying down, eventually coming back to Sukhasana, seated. We'll have a moment to close our practice. So again, the core teaching of all the Upanishads, Tat Tvam Asi, thou art that. So as we move forward into the rest of the week, connected to our true self, our witnessing awareness, also engaged with our lives and our relationships and activities. We'll take a moment to close our practice with the hands together at the heart, bowing our identity, our ego, our self to this true self within. And to each other, thank you for practicing today. Namaste.